Hello and welcome to the Questionable Album Club. On today's panel, we have Steve Gibson. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
We've got Marcus Kingwell. Hello, Marcus.
Hello.
We've got Steenie. Hello, Steenie.
Good evening.
And we've got Simon Ward.
Hello.
My name is Seb Hunter, and today's episode is all about The Eternal Idol, which was a 1987 album from Birmingham heavy metal pioneers Black Sabbath. This was their 13th studio album, and this was the first album with Tony Martin, their singer Tony Martin. I think it was so after Ozzy Osbourne it was Ronnie James Dio. Then it was a brief ill-fated spell with what's his name,
Ian Gillan.
Ian Gillan, yeah, thank you. And then Ray Gillan, who recorded this album and then left to go solo, also like this Badlands band. And so the entire album was virtually finished with Ray Gillan singing, and then he left. So Tony Iommi hurriedly rushed around to try and find somebody else and re-recorded all the vocals with this Tony Martin, and that was the first of his albums. But Tony Martin was a bit of a sort of substitute, wasn't he, for Black Sabbath? He kept getting fired when any other better singer came along, and they'd come back. And anyway, we'll get into all that, I'm sure. But so it's a bit of an outlier on the Black Sabbath catalogue. It's the least loved. It's a long way from Black Sabbath's kind of like classic year of the first sort of 5-6 albums that they're venerated for, rightly so. This is very much not that, an era where no one really cared about them. When late 1980s commercial hair metal kind of and thrash metal were all roaring ahead and selling millions of records. Tony Iommi was kind of on his own really with whoever it was who was in Black Sabbath. So that's what we're listening to today. And it was Steenie. This was your decision to foist this upon us. Can you explain why?
Primarily because I'm a big Sabbath fan, and yet I've never really properly given this album any time whatsoever. Even the other big Sabbath outliers, which are like Born Again with Ian Gillan, which is generally kind of, well, for a long time was quite derided, but then has kind of been welcomed back. I think people have sort of reappraised that, and there's a couple of good tunes on it. It's fun. I think people enjoy that record.
Steenie, can I just stop you for a second? Steve Gibson, did you put your hand up then because you wanted to say something, or were you just acknowledging that you liked Born Again?
I think I remember going into town to buy Born Again when it came out, and everyone liked it at the time. It was
okay, right.
It was good. But anyway, so just a small point of order. Carry on.
It's that sort of the thing with Born Again. I think was that it generally had this sort of stigma attached to it. I think based on that ill-fated Reading appearance with Gillan, where they played Smoke on the Water. And they had that big Stonehenge that didn't fit the stage, the reverse of the Spinal Tap scenario, and all that kind of stuff. All of this sort of heavy metal cliches that are associated with it, and I think that's probably why Born Again sort of became one of the dark horse records. But I think more than that, Eternal Idol really is the one that never ever gets mentioned. I think Seventh Star gets more attention, despite the fact that that's the one that I think was going to be the Tony Iommi solo album. And originally he didn't want that to be a Black Sabbath album, and Vertigo said it's got to be Black Sabbath. You can't have a Tony Iommi solo album. You are Black Sabbath. Whoever's on it, it's Black Sabbath. So they ended up with Glenn Hughes singing on it. And I didn't pick that album either because similar reasons. I know that I'm quite familiar with that record, and I actually have a certain fondness for a couple of the tracks on it. So I've gone for Eternal Idol because it really is an unfamiliar record to me, really. And yeah, it is one of those ones that never ever gets talked about, other than to kind of, in a sort of sniffy kind of way, and the fact that it was recorded once and aborted, as Seb has said, with Ray Gillan, and then revisited with Tony Martin, who then stayed on in the band for quite a number of years. I think sort of until they got Dio back anyway, wasn't it? About 92. So
and then Dio walked after Dehumanizer, and then he came back for cross purposes.
Yeah, he's the kind of like sort of front man on a string. He's like, well, I can't get who I wanted, so I'll get you back again, Tony. He's like, oh yeah, I'll come back, Tony. Absolutely fine, no worries. So yeah, he's the sort of unsung Sabbath frontman. I mean, he's done as much time as certainly more time than Dio, and yet never gets any recognition. So we'll find out whether
Very,
that's a worthy status or not when when we appraise this record.
very good, very good, very good. Steve Gibson, you called him out on Born Again.
No, I've just reappraised my statement there actually, because you have to remember the age we were when Born Again came out. We didn't have all the baggage. We hadn't, we weren't in our late twenties and had been through it all. I was just thinking, oh, well, he's joined them. That's a bit weird, but the album's banging and Trashed is brilliant and blah blah blah.
So this album's only two beyond that, right?
Yeah.
After Born Again and Ian Gillan left Sabbath because of the critical reception, and also he got the offer from Deep Purple to do Disney a lot of money for the reunion. So did you follow? Did you do Seventh Star, the solo album that was going to be the solo
no, a friend of mine bought it and I heard it and thought, because there was quite a gap. There was quite a gap.
Yeah, it was a couple of years, wasn't it?
Yeah, they really were out of favour and they were floundering. Iommi was floundering, and of course, it should. I mean, I always make a point of mentioning, because these things, bands these days get away with stuff by doing it pre-internet, because he played Sun City, didn't he? And in fact, he's the third artist we've had on here that played Sun City, and he probably has my favourite excuse for playing it, which was he didn't know it was in South Africa, which is fucking a joke. Which would be better if the next paragraph of his autobiography said, "Oh, when I found out, I gave all the money to various apartheid charities and that to help," but he didn't say that. Of course, the other two, Queen and Dolly Parton, the other two. Oh, sorry, go on.
There's a brilliant story about as a consequence of their decision to play South Africa, which we'll go into later, which has a direct consequence on something that's one of the videos from this album. I don't know if any of you know the story, but it's fantastic.
I know, because I was interested because we'll get more into it later, but the drumming on this is so leaden and appalling. I thought, is that? And I looked it up, and Bevan guests on does a bit of percussion, but he didn't want to. He left because they were going to do Sun City. So surely Bevan would have said to Tony Iommi, "You do know what's going on there, don't you?" That's why I'm not.
So Steve, I'm trying to cue you up to say, did you or did you not? You didn't. So you didn't. This was completely. So you did the one before, Rick or Keith, but you didn't do this one. This was
no. And my Sabbath history is much like everyone else's, or up to Sabotage. It's all completely amazing, and just bedrocks of the scene. And but it's quite actually difficult to put my mindset and everyone's mindset, because we're in the phase now where everyone's paying $6,000 for a ticket behind the stage at Villa Park to see Ozzy do half a song. And isn't it great they're back together? I saw Sabbath when Dio came back in fucking Southampton Gaumont, and it wasn't that particularly sold out. It's very difficult to get the zeitgeist of then back, but no, this is an album I wasn't familiar with, so it was quite an interesting thing to listen. There's absolutely no way I would have got around to listening to it if it wasn't for Questionable Album Club. So thank you. Thank the Lord for this this thing. But anyway, I'll when we go around again, I'll go into whether I actually liked it or not.
Marcus, do you want to give us your brief thumbnail of your where did you most be? Sabbath, one of those bands where everyone gets off at some particular point. Where did you get on and off?
It was with a cassette compilation that a friend did for me, probably about 1980, I think, which had a lot of rotation. Motorhead were my proper love in metal back in those days. So I really thought this is special. But on the flip side he recorded No Secret to Hammersmith on the back. He just filled it up with various kind of greatest hits of Sabbath. And I thought, oh my God, there's a real magic here. The genre is like so different from my entry via Motorhead, and hearing what Sabbath have done here. They're both magical in their own way, but very, very different. So like probably everyone on this, well, apart from Simon, and I can't wait to hear Simon's analysis. For the rest of us,
it's going to be juicy. Apologise, Simon, I really do.
Yeah, Sabbath are just extraordinary, really, aren't they? For music which is so simple and so basic, it's sort of so powerful and moving, and or the best, really, the first and the best. So yeah, wonderful stuff, Sabbath generally. But I just had a sort of general tailing off. I suppose I can't think of a particular kind of getting off point. It's probably around Heaven and Hell, I suppose. After that, I was sort of just had less interest those other bands that were taking my attention away, and didn't really think much about them. I remember Born Again coming out and there being a lot of fuss about it. And the story which actually I remember most about Sabbath's performance at Reading was not the Stonehenge being too big for the set. It was that Gillan didn't know the words to War Pigs, and he had them written out on sheets of A4 with a magic marker in front of him. And then they filled the stage with about 2 tons of dry ice and smoke, and he couldn't read them. So he was actually on his hands and knees doing this, trying to blow the smoke away and read these things. And it was on the Friday Rock Show. They did one of their famous outside broadcast recording things and played it, and it was just a total car crash. And that was where, because the visuals of the failing stage set weren't obvious on the radio, you could hear the performance was just all over the place, under rehearsed and terrible. So that was probably is that sort of period when I moved away from Sabbath. So this album was completely new to me. Yeah, it was its first spin at home for me in my ears a week ago. I've given it a few goes so far. What else can I say, really? Do you want any commentary now, or are you just going to just do
entirely up to you, mate? The fashion these days is not to do that. The fashion these days is a little bit saucy and show us a little bit of your nipple, but then put it away.
I'll just throw a little bit out there first of all. So opening track, I had that.
The Shining.
The Shining, the opening track, The Shining, and I'm thinking, well, this has got a great riff. I'm loving the nostalgia that's coming forward. It's sort of like the Friday Rock Show, 11:15 feeling. There's some tracks coming on. You're not really sure what they are, but it's all kind of young and exciting. I'm feeling kind of 16, 17 years old again. Really thinking this is really, really good. So I had a very good start with this album. And then I just think I'll move on to Simon, because he's going to be definitely the most entertaining person on this.
So I feel sorry for. I think Simon. I think we all offer our apologies to you for this, for the next hour and the time that you've had listening to this, because of course, do you even know what the Friday Rock Show is? Was?
No, I don't.
No, it was an iconic. It was a rock show on Radio 1 hosted by Tommy Vance, who didn't even like heavy metal music, and it was all we had to listen to as because apart from Kerrang magazine, that was the only thing where you could get your fix of. But of course, they used to just play the web, and then just go for a cup of tea and stuff. They just played Supper's Ready, just really long songs and really long live sets. Anyway, that's a different matter entirely. Simon, I'm sorry, mate. Just go. Start.
Well, so you'll be unsurprised to learn that the question, when did I get on and when did I get off with Black Sabbath, has the same, both of them have the same answer. I never got on and I never got off. And I mean, so that at that time, I didn't listen to any heavy metal and I've subsequently, if you listen, I listen to a lot of kind of heavy music that isn't heavy metal, and there's always somebody talking about Sabbath as being an influence on the kind of noise rock and all that kind of stuff. And I think I remember reading something years ago when grunge came around, that there were the 3 Bs. So it was Black Sabbath, Black Flag, and Big Black were the 3 bands that they represented inspired grunge. I think the first, I obviously heard Paranoid, just I think after that, the next Black Sabbath song I heard was the Butthole Surfers, a couple of 6 rounds before. But subsequently, I've kind of, I'm aware of War Pigs. I'm aware of Super North because one of Al Jurgensen's bands covered it. There's some other Black Sabbath songs that I know, I can't remember what they're called. And the early Black Sabbath stuff that I've heard, I like more than I like most other heavy metal. It's pretty much the only metal that I've ever put on purpose, and I don't know if all three of these are regarded as metal or not, but Motorhead, AC/DC, and Black Sabbath occasionally. But that's quite recently. I wouldn't have known any of their songs from this kind of. I mean, this album to me, I don't know if you remember, it's not quite true that the Friday Rock Show was the only thing that you had. Did any of you remember the chart show on Channel 4?
Yeah, that was a bit later.
They
that was
used to have a
ITV.
section every week, and it rotated. There were three of them that rotated each week. So it was indie one week, dance the next week, and then metal the next week.
That was a little bit later.
Was it?
Yeah, a little bit later.
Hey, this
But yeah, sorry?
This came out in 87, right?
Yes, but the Friday Rock Show had been going for quite a long time.
Right, yeah, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah, okay. So, but by then, so I'm thinking about in that kind of period that this came out. This sounds to me, well, if you said to me heavy metal then or now, and I know a little bit more about heavy metal now than I did then, but if you say to me heavy metal, what I hear is this record. This sounds like the archetypal heavy metal record to me. Partly because I think my exposure to heavy metal was, like we've talked about before, Steve, my lot and the metal lot used the same pub because we wouldn't beat each other up. And so you heard, I sort of was heard metal sometimes, and it all sounds like this to me. This just sounds like what metal sounds like. All of it.
Yeah, it is almost. I mean, we'll come to this, but it's almost like an AI. If you ask AI to make,
it's metal by numbers, right? It's got all of the. If you're going to do a metal album, and it's got that, it's got
all the lyrical themes, all the tempos, all the everything. Yeah, it's like the only thing it's missing is a sort of super overblown power balance. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay.
So I came at I came at this record with no real understanding of Black Sabbath and no real understanding of heavy metal. So it's been an interesting journey.
Thank you very much. That's very I totally get that. Me, very briefly, I didn't know this. I got into as someone earlier on said, Steve said, we all found that you have to find your way into music. There was no map back in those days. You had to kind of find your own way through things. I discovered Black Sabbath, I suppose, through Ozzy Osbourne. A friend, a mate of mine, had Bark at the Moon, and then we had that. Do you remember he did that Talk of the Devil album with Brad Gillis playing guitar, really weird. That was where I first heard the Black Sabbath classics on that Ozzy Osbourne album. I loved them, and then got in the by that way. And the first Black Sabbath album I bought was Born Again on cassette. Which I liked, but had a weird production, still has a weird production. But anyway, so that's my boring Black Sabbath context. I didn't know this album, and I agree with Simon. It's funny how Tony Martin sounds so like. To me, my experience with this record is very strange because I listened to it the first time. I thought, oh god, it is so generic. It is so visibly generic and so one paced and just so unimaginative. And like always with this, second time it gets you a little bit, and then of course I thought, well, and actually after the first time I was so bored. I thought, what am I going to do now? I can't bear listening to that again. I thought I read about it and read about the Ray Gillen. I looked to see if the deluxe version was on Spotify, and it is, and it's got the whole album with Ray Gillen singing it, but without those processed drums. Because the problem with this record is the drums. Black Sabbath music, it's so kind of authentic. It's not. It's really simple. It's not. They're not one of those bands that suits a big production, kind of that 80s production. I think it sounds so alien. The drums just sound so processed, and it just doesn't suit them at all. Doesn't suit this music. And the great thing about the Ray Gillen version is that the drums just sound like it sounds much more like people playing in a room. And it's funny, and I enjoyed it much more, the Ray Gillen version, although his voice Ray Gillen's got much more of a kind of sorry, Simon, again, for these references, you're just going to be so fucking bored. But Ray Gillen's much more kind of Dave Meniketti, Jeff Tate, that kind of high, pure, elastic kind of thing, you know, whereas Tony Martin is just Ronnie James Dio. He just sounds like a pound shop Ronnie James. And it's great, but he sounds exactly like Ronnie James Dio with that production. So I've been kind of going back and forth, almost like a kind of in an objective, scientific lab coat way, listening to this song and thinking, oh, okay, this sound, what does it sound like? Oh, Nightmare, and and this, and as I've been comparing the two, I've been sort of slowly, tragically getting into it until I can now tell the difference between the songs. And now it's not just one generic thing. To me now, it's quite a nice piece of art. Which always this fucking podcast always does this, doesn't it? You think it's a shit album, you listen to it once, it's a shit album, and now I've listened to it 7 or 8 times. It's like, oh, I quite like it. Anyway, Steenie, what did you think?
I should just unmute. Yeah, exactly what you just said there. It kind of summed up my experience. The first time I listened to it, I actually got quite angry. I was listening to it, and the drums made me so infuriated. I was listening. This is the shittest thing. I just couldn't get over it. How awful the drums sounded. How loud, how dominant they are. I mean, that's true of the production of so much of that music in the 80s. And at the time, like I was oblivious to that because I was 10. I was 11 years old when this record came out. And I would have been oblivious to that. And I would have thought that's just how music is. And then having got into lots of other bands and then the earlier Sabbath stuff and realized what this music could and should sound like, where the real magic of heavy metal is. I would then have realized the error of my ways. But yeah, this is what records did sound like in the 80s, isn't it? This drum sound and there's no subtlety allowed in any of the drumming. There's no swinging in the drumming. There's no which is the key thing with Black Sabbath. Bill Ward is the swingingest, most jazz influenced of them all. Maybe between him and Ian Pace, it's a tight one, but I would always side with Bill, I think, because that's where my heart is. And it's all about the nuances, the ghost notes on the snare, crushed rolls, working off the hi-hat, all of this sort of the art of drums. This is just boom, cha, boom, cha. And I know that Eric Singer isn't a terrible drummer. He can't be because he wouldn't have got that many gigs. He's played with absolutely everybody. But this has been laid down to him, hasn't it? You will play this because this is what is happening in the music world today. And the first time I listened to the record, I couldn't escape that sound. I after 3 songs, I had to turn it off and like calm down and listen to something else because it really got on my wick. And then I came back to it, and I was like, right, I'm going to concentrate this time and look beyond that. And it's still, like you say, is insanely generic. It's metal by numbers. Tony's got some riffs, and some of them are really good riffs that would work really well. And he's not really had anyone to bounce them off. It's a song. It's true of a lot of the stuff that he did, I think, through the 80s, where he's got these sort of ideas, and then there's no one to kind of work with him on it. So there's no band, there's no sort of like creative sort of chemistry. He just goes in there and I've got this riff. Well, that'll do. Great. I mean, there are some songs on this that are just one riff, and
nothing develops.
And they've built like the whole song around it. I mean, what is it? Born to Lose, where the vocal actually works off the guitar riff. He does the thing where he obviously couldn't think of anything to sing, so he just goes like and sings the guitar riff, and that's part of the melody of the vocal. You're like, well, that's not songwriting. That's just singing the same thing as the guitar. I mean, sometimes that works, but in this instance, it's just because he couldn't think of anything better to do. But then, track by track, there are some songs on there that I found myself enjoying, and in exactly the same way. Not because of this record, as it was released, but having listened to the Gillan stuff, the Ray Gillan, not Ian Gillan, the original recordings, and heard what the songs could have sounded like. I've started to, you get to grips with the actual tune and come out liking a few of them. I mean, The Shining has got a fairly decent riff. It's got a good bit of atmosphere. The bridge sounds a bit Scorpions. But then, you've got Ancient Warrior's a funny one, that second track, because it's kind of cool, and I actually really like it. except for the fact that on the album, the Tony Martin version, there's something quite sour about the vocal melody. It doesn't fit the riff, and you listen to it, and you're like, "That's a great riff." And then there's something he's either out of tune or he's singing a couple of notes that don't work, and it's because he's basically copying exactly what Ray Gillan did, which is all he's done. It's the same backing track, isn't it? And they've just said, "Right, you will sing this part," and it's not like Tony Martin. I don't think he can hear it in the same way that Ray Gillan heard it when he sang it. And so when you listen to Gillan's thing, actually, it sounds great. It sounds really good. But yeah, it's got the worst drum fill in any heavy metal song ever. I think that song "Ancient Warrior," though. To go back to the drums again, it actually has that da 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 drum fill in it, which is like, I was in a band, to digress somewhat. I was in, my very first band was called Rat Salad because we were such massive Sabbath fans. We named ourselves after Rat Salad, the song. Our drummer, Hartshorn, he was in a military marching band called the Red Admirals. They were majorettes. He couldn't play a rock beat. He only knew how to do all of that style drumming. So we used to do all these rock songs, and it would be kind of like Paranoid. We'd be da 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 da, and then it'd be like bam 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 bam. In the, he'd always do that drum fill, and hearing that, I just all these horrible flashbacks to trying to teach someone how to play the drums when I didn't even know how to play the drums myself. So yeah, it's exactly that, and just working through the lyrics. Hard life to love, it's one of those life in the fast lane. Oh, you'll burn out. Oh, it's hard on the road. Oh, write what you know. But it's all really, everyone knows that right when bands start writing about how tough it is being in a band, then game over. What else have we got? Nightmare, I really like. That was good. Apparently to be used on A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, wasn't it? I think one of the Freddy films. They wanted to use that, and it kind of works. It's got that sort of nice loping feel to it, but once again, it doesn't swing at all. It could. It has that swing feel, or it should have that swing feel, but the drums are just going boom, da, dum, da. And you think, well, if I had Bill Ward on drums here, this would be amazing. It also has an incredible lyric in it. Nightmare, scared forever into believing that your mind has met the prince of whom you see. Which just sounds like it was written by someone whose first language wasn't English. And it's if Halloween or Creator had written that, I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, terrible. And one of the things I really like though, Scarlet Pimpernel does that sort of little instrumental.
Yeah,
It's not in itself that great, but it is a nice bit of breathing space, and it carries on that sort of Sabbath tradition of having the little instrumental bit like Orchid or Embryo or Laguna Sunrise and Fluff, all the ones off the great Sabbath albums. They used to always break it up with a little bit of an acoustic piece, and I kind of liked the fact that they'd done that, and they'd called it something as preposterous as Scarlet Pimpernel, which I really enjoyed. And but yeah, then Lost Forever, I think track 8, getting towards the end of the album. What I did enjoy about that was the fact that's the one song where the drums are actually lower in the mix, and they're trying to go for a Neon Nights kind of thing. The song itself is kind of generic, but just because of the fact that finally they've mixed it, not particularly well, but better than the rest of the record, I kind of really got into that tune for Lost Forever, and it's got a really good solo. As well, a really nice bit of guitar on it by Tony Iommi. And then end up probably the best song on the album, I think, Eternal Idol. It's got all of the Sabbath. I wrote COD Sabbath because it's got all the elements, the slow tom rolls, the slow minor riff, the kind of nods to Black Sabbath with the tom stuff. It's not particularly spooky or genuine, but it's still one of the best songs. But fades out strangely early. They could have ended that. That could have gone on. I mean, having slated most of the record here, I think that song finishes too soon. It's got a very short fade on it, where I would have thought, well, they could have extended that and played it out a bit more and made more of a sort of finale for the record, I realised, listening to the demos or whatever the original, why? Because there's a fluff drum fill on that Ray Gillen one right at the end. You hear like it's a real clunky bit where they're like, "Oh shit, we better drop the faders now because you'll hear this shit bit of Eric Singer messing it up right at the end." But for all of that, the Gillen version of Eternal Idol, I really liked that, listening to the demo, but that's not the album. We're not reviewing the Gillen demos here, are we? We're reviewing what came out in '87.
I suppose we are.
And it's just it's sad now that they've released this in a way, because it just reeks of missed opportunity. It would never have been a classic, but stuff like the Eternal Idol, that Gillen demo has got, like, it sounds like Trouble or Candlemass or something. It's got those sort of vibes, bands I really like. It's got, you know, and who were out at the same time with similarly kind of ropey production. I mean, some of the St. Vitus records have got terrible production, but I really love them because the songs are kind of there and the vibe.
Yeah, Steve, I think you're right about the song Eternal Idol. At least the Eternal Idol song, it does sound like Black Sabbath.
It sounds like Sabbath.
Steve, coming to you, did the rest of it sound like Black Sabbath?
I'm just enjoying you two talking about the art of drumming, which is
obviously we're experts.
Right, it pains me to say you've absolutely hit the nail on the head about the drum. The drumming on this is awful, and the production's awful. The drums sound terrible, and the actual drumming's awful. I prefer the demos just because they just sound more rocking. I thought when I put this on, I thought, here we go. Within 30 seconds, we're into Heaven and Hell beat. Did it? We're into that, and the first time I heard it, I thought, well, this just sounds like Mob Rules outtakes or something, you know, just ideas been drifting around since then. But as I've sort of gone through and tried to make notes about the songs, I've just written riff after a lot of them because I think there's some killer riffs on here that grew on me. One of my favourite points about this album is the cover models had to be taken to hospital because the paint was toxic on them.
Because they weren't allowed to because it's it's a reproduction of the
yeah.
So they weren't allowed permission, so they decided, this is brilliant. It's a fantastic story.
In fact, then there's a bit of this that sounds like sort of Sabotage, all that ploddy crap that sort of came out around that time as well. So I think they were trying to tie themselves into that. Though Eternal Idol was just a total throwback, and the Scarlet Pimpernel, I just thought, as you said, Steenie, was just another little throwback, another sort of, we do this this is what Sabbath do, we do a little acoustic-y bit. But so it was very nostalgic on that front, and I just think there are some killer riffs on it, which grew on me, over the few times I heard it. But the drums sound awful. I'm not a fan of keyboards anyway, and I can't stand 80s keyboards, which are on this, and I can't stand 80s keyboards in metal. It's a massive turn off for me. So, but right from the off, I was expecting, before I even started to listen to it, I was expecting it, because you had to do it at the time, didn't you? You just had to do it. But yeah, I mean, I grew not to. It sort of grew on me a little, like a lot of albums on here that I disagree with Seb a little bit, because he said, "Oh, that's what happens on here. You end up liking it." There's plenty of albums in here that I think are even worse than I thought they could be when I've listened to them. This is one that's grown, a little bit over the time that I've had it. And despite Sun City and all the rest of it, Sabbath are part of your history. So I'd have absolutely hated it at the time. I know that I wouldn't have been interested at all at the time because there was just so much else going on. But to listen to it now, some good. I've just written riffs after a lot of them, and I was a bit disappointed. There's one video from this as well. You must have all watched it. So I think was it Nightmare did a video for.
It's The Shining.
The Shining. It's just your black and white, sort of thing. And I do in his autobiography. I don't know if you've read it, but he's a bit of a twat around this period because he's He thinks this is a classic. He thinks all the rest, everything else is just let down by this, that, and the other. He sacked Tony Martin by putting a note under his door, the way these people say these things as if it's the normal thing to do. He's only been in the band 10 years, but I can't be. But I'm too scared to actually. So I'll put a note under his door. But yeah, so all in all, yeah, not too bad. And I think Bevan deserves a big nod for leaving because of the Sun City thing. And I don't think we can buy his excuse, can we? No, no. So that's pretty much it, really, till I score it. But thanks,
That's funny.
Steve. That's been an interesting listen. But as you say, it's difficult not to refer to the demos because they're a lot more listenable, a lot more harder, a lot more rocking. But we're not
Well, it's
reviewing.
funny. What's funny though is that both myself, Steenie, and you, Steve, we've all just listened to the demos. That no other albums we've done. You think if there's an extra disc of early versions, we just fucking drink my own piss. Do you know what I mean? But we all kind of, I wonder what these are like. And we've all listened. We've all talked extensively about the demos, Simon.
Yeah.
So, Marcus, did you listen to the demo disc, or did you just stick with the album?
Not interested. Of course, you're all wrong. I think I'm falling into the Simon's camp now. This album was quite enjoyable on the first sweep, but it got progressively worse as time went on. I think its true colours dawned on me. I lost the initial nostalgia and tripped down memory lane of, oh yeah, it's a heavy metal album. This is kind of exciting. There's crunchy riffs and all that, and then realised it's just so formulaic, so lacking in ideas, so of its time in a bad way, capitalizing on the money that metal was making back then. It just lost me. Well, slightly weird thing actually. Caroline was in the garden when I was listening to it. She was picking out some stones and throwing them into a metal bucket, and it was actually exactly the same sound as the snare drum. How weird's that? I thought I was going to have a double hearing. Just the thing she was doing. Why was she doing it?
Yeah.
She likes a bit of gardening. She was just like,
that's not gardening. That's
a child's game.
No, that's the one. Yeah, doing that as well. But that snare drum sound is just a total grey the whole way through. It dominates even all the rest of it. And I just think it's a very sad scenario to have Black Sabbath put their name to this piece of work because it's so far from where they've come, and it's in reverse for what they originally stood for, which was just making music for blokes from difficult upbringings, doing something that expressed their emotions, and now we've got
Marcus,
it
but Marcus,
just along the coffers.
But Marcus, you have to remember they were a kind of a brand by then, and of course the record company, if they want to carry on, the record company says, well, we want an album, and if we want it to sound like, and what this does sound like then, Marcus, is it does sound like a sort of cheap version of the Dio, with more rules. It sounds like a sort of you get more.
It does. You're right. Yeah, it's kind of, but it's.
So there is a Black Sabbath brand template to the sound of this.
That's true. Yeah, but there's a kind of a credibility threshold that this record doesn't get over for me. It's just below it. It's got that something about it is, to use the cliche of the year. It's inauthentic music. It's just pieced together with the sounds and the styles and the ingredients of the time to formulate this sort of commercial, almost a pop metal sound. Even the fact they're writing song titles that reference movies that are around because they can see a tie-up opportunity. It just is like really irritating. But there's one thing I did like from this, actually. I do have a small plus, which is Tony Martin's voice, which I thought was pretty good. I thought he was a really proper rock singer, and if he was on the circuit playing down the 1865 or whatever, I don't know what he's doing now, but whatever his band is, I'd be quite intrigued to see him. It's what you want from a rock and metal voice in my book. You're right, very similar to Dio, a bit more gritty and a bit less operatic, but that's no bad thing. That will be reflected in my score when we come round to scoring.
I think Tony Martin was waiting a long time because a couple of years ago they released a box set of the Tony Martin years, and I think for quite a long time he was just sort of just waiting for that to happen so that his era could be have a light shone back up on it. And you're right about the song titles. Like, my favorite is Ancient Warrior. It feels to me like, because Ancient Warrior, it's just so random. It feels like they put that as a holding name, we'll put the name of an actual ancient warrior in
Yeah.
later. But by the time it came to, oh no, we'll just call it ancient warrior. Which ancient? Oh, any. There's loads of them. I love the kind of the random nature of ancient warrior. It's brilliant.
It's weird, that ancient warrior, because I thought it's actually about Jesus, isn't it? That song, the lyrics, "He is the King of Kings, the Light of Lights." As the lyrics,
Oh,
I was thinking that's not an ancient warrior. That's some god bothering, isn't it? But
I hadn't actually listened to the lyrics. Right.
No, it really stuck out to me because I was like, "What is this? Hang on a minute. Is this the bit where they went Christian rock for a second?" But yeah, no, it mightn't be totally unintentional, but it's just, yeah, I just got the waft of Christian metal coming off of that chorus.
Simon, did you listen to the demos disc?
No, I didn't. No. In fact,
so you last time we spoke to you this just sounded like an AI bot version of a heavy metal album. Did it cut through? Did anything come through that? How many times did you listen to it? Dare I ask?
A few. A few. I did an intensive course in it over the last couple of days, and I mean, did I listen to the demos? No, I didn't. When I first put it on, the first few bars before anything happens, I thought, oh, this might be interesting. This sounds a bit like The Mission. And then it came in, and I thought, this sounds like Tenacious D. And then it started properly, and I realised what I was in for. And I scrolled down and was very relieved to discover there were only 9 tracks. And when I saw the deluxe, I did see the deluxe version, and I consciously chose the other one because I figured there'd be less on it. And I was delighted when I noticed there were 9 tracks. I was slightly disappointed then when I scanned through the times and realised that they were all 4 or 5 minutes long. So I'm just utterly baffled. But see, for people who enjoy heavy metal, you'd be talking about this album like people who like a kind of music are able to do and say, this is a good version of it and this is a bad version of it. But this just sounds like all other heavy metals. All heavy metal sounds like this to me, with a few exceptions. I know that so one of the reasons that I sort of made some investigation into Sabbath over the last sort of few years is I like the kind of, I know what you mean about that 80s production. It's the complete antithesis of that sort of heaviness that they had in the early days, the dry heaviness. And this production is just so familiar to me because when this came out, I would have been 15 when this came out. And I was just immersing myself in all the music I could. And a lot of the metal around that time, I think, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the metal that I encountered, it all sounded like this. So what I find confusing about metal is if you were to take all the elements in this record, so it's got chunky distorted guitars, it's got, well, in the case of this record, I agree with everybody else, some horrific drumming and steamy. I spotted that fill as well, my lord. But that gated reverb sound on the drums and the Steve, the 80s synth, that metal synth on it is horrible. But apart from that, all of the elements of this, mostly with one exception, which I'll mention in a moment, they're all present in lots of music that I like. I mean, at the time, I only pretty much listened to things with guitars in. And it sort of confused me a bit at the time. I could never quite work out why the Damned were good, but all of this other stuff that had, and I guess my only, and you won't agree, but I think the Cult listen to more metal than most of the people on my side of the fence. I've got a feeling that they might have asked their engineer and producer to listen to this record when they made Sonic Temple, because it sounds exactly like this, Sonic Temple, which is probably why it's so widely ridiculed. So yeah, I'm slightly confused by why I don't like heavy metal, because I sort of feel like it's got all the things I like, and I like a big loud guitar, and I like long sort of heavy riffs, but one of the things that kills it for me is I cannot stand that style of singing. I absolutely loathe it. It's like fingers down a blackboard. And this guy is like bang on right in the middle of what's awful about it. That kind of horrible, like, oh, it's as soon as I hear that kind of thing, Bruce, what's his name? Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, and the guy out of Dio, the guy is he the guy's called,
Yeah.
right?
The big soaring epic,
horrible sound.
the big soaring epic metal thing. You don't.
It's like, oh, it's like horrible. So I think one of the things that put me off metal is that almost everybody in metal seems to sing like that. And I was just by way of comparison to see if I can work out what's different. I listened to a Killing Joke record from the 90s, which has got a similar production to this. And it's got chunky riffs, you know, dunk type stuff. But Jazz Coleman, critically, doesn't sound anything like that. And I think that's probably the big difference between the heavy music that I like and metal, is it doesn't have that god-awful singing on it, that wailing bullshit. And also the lyrics. I've read some of the lyrics as well, Steely, and I read that Ray Gillan got fired because he wasn't writing any lyrics.
No, he wasn't being paid.
He wasn't being paid. Yeah, and he left. Yeah, so he left but it was because he hadn't written any lyrics. I mean, I think they'd have been better off with Ray Gillan's no lyrics than the lyrics that they've got, which are just embarrassingly bad. But in general, with listening to the record, I don't dislike it. I don't like. I mean, it's a pleasant enough because I like all the sounds collectively. I have to kind of close one ear when he starts singing, but it's quite a nice sound, and that 80s drum sound and everything was quite a nice sort of nostalgic thing. The last track is probably a bit more interesting than the others. I agree with that. It had a bit more kind of, I don't know. It's just all like, I mean, even somebody.
So I think you're raising a really good point about the vocal, because we all, when hard rocks first started, the vocalists were very idiosyncratic. Geddy Lee with his high voice, Bon Scott with his kind of lascivious, kind of like there. Ozzy Osbourne, a plumber given a microphone, none of that kind of histrionic stuff at all. But then I think you're right, Bruce Dickinson, because he replaced Paul Di'Anno, the first Iron Maiden singer, was very much punk and gruff and again, personality, idiosyncratic. His personality came through. But I think when Bruce Dickinson started, he was so successful. People, this overblown operatic thing, people thought, oh, it really symbolises. It goes with all the flags and all the nonsense, all the epics, symbology, all this kind of shit, and it kind of stuck. And it became, and people like bands like Queensryche and it got developed, and it became a rote thing. It became a kind of, right, if you're going to be heavy metal, true heavy metal singer, the vocals got to sound like that, and it marks it so bad, and you kind of get used to it as we're metalers, I suppose. You sort of blank it out a little bit, but it did come to define. And when you hear this, it's almost like he's left his personality, or any personality that might be there, at the front door. I'm meant to sing like this, aren't I? So I'll sing like this and sing lyrics about sorcery and whatever. So it's kind of like, it's like pressing a button. And I think that's the thing, that the interesting heavy metal singers have their own personality is allowed to be there. And I think we all agree with this. We all had our own heavy metal journey and then came out of it. But this by rote epic heavy metal singing, a lot of people love it, like a lot of Steve's friends we know and love. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And actually, now you mention it, if I think about those three metal bands that I said I've listened to, none of them sing like that. So Lemmy doesn't sing like that. Bon Scott didn't sing like that. Osbourne didn't sing like that. So, and that's the thing I think that majorly turned me off. But this was quite nice. And the bits of it quite nice. But what I don't get, and I have this with most metal, and I had it with this record. A few of you talked about there being good riffs in it, and I can't hear any music in it. There's nothing to engage with. There's no it's just a collection of sounds in an order. It doesn't, there's no hook, there's no song, it's just, I'll do this kind of singing and it'll be lots and lots of notes, and Tony Iommi thankfully, is not a widdly widdly, except in one of them he has a bit of a widdly widdly, but or possibly a couple. But most of the time he sticks to chunky chunky. But his riffs don't do anything. They're not. They're just. It just feels like
I think
chord and then another chord and then another chord and with no real.
I think I know exactly what you mean. That there's not enough personality to them. I think Steenie nailed it earlier on when Steenie said that there's no one to bounce ideas off. He got some riffs and they're okay, but they weren't developed. The songs don't develop. They don't flower. And I think if you have a riff, most of the songs are just based around the riff. The verse, there's the riff, the verse is over the riff, and the chorus is a modulation of that. And you're right, and there's nothing that stands out. And I know exactly. But I also agree with Steve. I think there are some good riffs, but there's nothing really to lift it out of.
I mean,
Steenie.
I would say it's not as bad as I thought it was. It's going to be.
Well, I was expecting a lot worse. Steenie, do you want to anything else you want to say, mate, before you sum up and score? We should probably get on with this.
Just one thing about what we've been talking about, the lyrics and things like that. This is a Bob Daisley thing, isn't it? This is another Bob Daisley rescue job, which is what he used to get called on by Ozzy to do all the time, which is come in, write me some words because I can't. And Tony's the same. And Bob Daisley he's pulled some magic out over the years. The first Ozzy solo album, I think, has got reasonably good lyrics, and they're mostly his. And same with a lot of the early Ozzy stuff. It's not too bad. By this point, I think he's a spent force, isn't he? He's got some song titles and he's padding them out. But I think this is probably what this is about, as we're talking about the creative chemistry and the bouncing ideas. This is about as close to it as you get. But the riffs, I get the impression that the riffs and the songs are already set in stone, and then it's write me a melody that fits this riff and this arrangement, and write me some words as well, and go. And he can do it because he's been doing it all the time with Ozzy and things like that. But I think he was probably just dumped in it as usual. I think he was there for the sessions, wasn't he, in Montserrat? They never just go to like Andover or somewhere do these records.
Thank God.
They go out to Montserrat.
Have you been to Andover? There's a reason why.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a funny record. It's for all of its flaws, there are things on it that I've found enjoyable. But like we've been saying, I don't understand. I mean, I am sounding like a scratch record now, but I think if I was to listen to revisit this in any form, it would be to listen to the demo disc. That's not the record we're reviewing, really. So if we're going to sort of sum up, I would say, yeah, absolutely. I'd say Sabbath by numbers, but only for certain songs and for the concept. I think it is metal by numbers. Yeah, as Simon's saying, it's not. There's other than a few key elements, a lot of what they're sort of hitting off here is the sound of the time rather than the sound of Black Sabbath. And even when they've tried to hark back to eras of Sabbath, it's sort of it's mostly not the classic era. It is mostly, well, I mean, to some people it's classic era, but the Dio era is what they're after, isn't it? Because I think that's closer to what Tony Martin can sing and probably what Ray Gillen could sing as well, and closer chronologically as well. I mean, it's in more recent memory, isn't it, for Tony Iommi? You might have forgotten how to write Supernauts and NIB. So yeah, it's a deeply confused record, and so I suppose we want some marks for this one. And I'm sort of thinking I'm going to give it 51 because which sounds generous, I think, because I could have gone lower, but I think it's I can't bring myself to totally rubbish a Sabbath album. and there are elements of it that I quite like, but yeah, it's considering that for you're talking first 6 Sabbath albums and some of the Dio stuff, you're talking 90s. I think 51 is a good mark.
I agree, absolutely. Yeah. And it's above halfway, just above half. So
yeah, just above half. I'm still on Tony Iommi's Christmas list. That's all I care about.
Steve.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Simon has had to listen to probably one of the most generic heavy metal albums I've ever heard. But and it's metal by numbers. The drumming's awful. Some good riffs. I didn't hate it. The ultimate Hewitt Quacker's fucking acid test is for me. Will I listen to it again? I certainly won't. But I'm going 45 for me. I'm going to 45.
Do you know, this is going to score quite highly just because no one really hates it and there's a bit of respect for Iommi and stuff.
Oh, no, it's not going to score highly, Seb.
Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on.
Oh, no.
Marcus, come on, mate. You're not going to do a Gibson.
For all the reasons that have been said on this podcast, that it's going to get a low number for me. I wanted to give it 13 because that's the title of a Black Sabbath album from a few years ago, but that actually is too low for this. That's would be one of my lowest scores.
Marcus, this is their 13th album.
Oh, well, that's not going to be the reason for scoring. I've got to give this podcast the credit that it's due and give it my honest number, not a gimmick number. So it's going to get 19 from me. Weak, but not a disaster. I thank you.
No, thank you, Marcus. Very succinct as well. Simon, this could go anywhere, couldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not as bad as the Yngwie Malmsteen album that we haven't listened to.
Very little is.
Well, true, and it's a fuck ton better than Vision Queen. And I will do a gimmicky score because all this pseudo mysticism stuff, I'm going to give it 23, which is an important number if you're into that. Which they all
Thank you. Quite cryptic. I just wanted very briefly to talk about the Shining video, which is fantastic because they filmed it just after Bev Bevan refused to have anything to do with them after the Sun City thing. So they got Terry Chimes in the Clash, who also was in Hanoi Rocks very briefly after Basil died. And but they didn't have a bass player, so they got a random bloke off the street who they think was called Steve, and he's in the video. And he's in it only 4 times. It's a completely random bloke. They never saw him before or after. They never saw him after ever again. And there's about 4 shots of him, and he's playing the bass, and he was a guitar player apparently. And so it's this bloke Steve and Terry Chimes of Clash playing drums. Quite like that. Anyway, and three attractive women, obviously. So, but I am going to give the, and I'm not meant to, but I'm going to give the Ray Gillen demo version 55 because it sounded like a rock record. And I quite like. I was on the M27 today, and I thought, I need to listen to this again. I put the Ray Gillen the demo version of Lost Forever, and when you're driving on that way, it's sort of even at 50 miles an hour through the roadworks, I was like, it's so cheesy, but this is rocks, man. This is fucking. So that tragic listening to rock music on the motorway thing. Sorry, Simon.
I will go and listen to those demos.
It's much better. Well, the drumming you can hear. It sounds like a drum kit. That's the thing.
Mm.
And the vocal is more elastic. There's not so much of that kind of like grain, that you dislike so much. Anyway, so I would give the Ray Gillen the demo version 55, and I would give the version that we ended up with 40, and most of that is just because it's Tony Iommi, and I can't. A bit like Steenie, I don't feel I can go any less than that. So yeah, 40 for me. So I've got my calculator here. Let me just add this up. So we've got a 45. From Steve plus Marcus's 19. You can do this in your head again, Marcus, like I did last time. Plus Steenie's 51, plus Simon's 23, plus my 40 gives us 178 divided by 5. Marcus, do you want to tell us?
I'm just no, I can't do it. It's too late. It's gone 10 o'clock.
No, fair enough, mate. It was incredible what you did last night. It's 35.6. Which, yeah, so no, you were right, Marcus. It's just in absolute mid-table shitsville. So that puts it 35.6. It puts it in between Dada by Alice Cooper, which for now feels like weirdly low. Dada by Alice Cooper was 37.4, so it's in between that and Saved by Bob Dylan, which is 35.6. So it's officially now after Steve's. I don't know if you listened to Marcus. You went on last one, but Steve controversially has now deleted Thunderbox. So he decided that Thunderbox was not allowed. So Thunderbox is not now on the list. You missed that.
Hold on a minute.
It's only me. It's up to you whether you join me or not. But it's I just don't.
It's because the criteria weren't met on that first one. I think we all sort of
No. It's just
Marcus, you carry on with what you want to do and leave me to do what I want to do.
All right. Well, we need an official scoreboard for this Quack channel. Excuse me. And I think if we've reviewed it, the score's the score, isn't it? So.
All right. I will reinstate Thunderbox. Jesus Christ, it's going to be on and off. Anyway, so it's at number it's either number 10 or 11, depending on how you feel about that.
Depending whether you're me or Marcus. Yeah.
So it's 12 or 11 or 12. Anyway, so total absolute mid-table nothingness. Steve, you're next.
Right, so I've chosen an album by an artist that is a Marmite artist for me. I've probably got like a under 30% hit rate, but 30% of it I love, the rest of it I don't really like very much. But it's Prince and it's Planet Earth, which is the one that was given away on the Daily Mail. So hopefully we'll have plenty to talk about on all sorts of levels there.
What year?
Oh, I can't remember. I don't know. I can't remember.
I've never even heard of it.
Mild coughing fit there, laughing.
Stunned silence from everyone. Sorry, have I said something wrong? Have I suggested a poor album? Sorry.
I just think it's funny.
What scene? Go on.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying. I think it's funny that an album giving away the Daily Mail. It's a good premise for a questionable album with a questionable origin. I very much doubt whether Prince has any familiarity with the Daily Mail.
2007, apparently. 2007.
How much longer did he have on planet Earth after releasing this? When did he die?
It was like a couple of years ago he died, but it's probably longer, isn't it?
It's longer than that.
Yeah.
10 songs. It's only 10 songs. 44 minutes, and there's no deluxe edition, so not too bad.
Demos.
Anyone familiar with this?
What demos is Sorry, Seb.
So Steve, you got this. Steve, you got this already? Did you say?
Have I got this album? No, I've never heard it.
So
I've never heard
it.
it.
I thought you said that you knew some of the songs.
No, over Prince's career, I either like his songs or his songs. He's just a Marmite artist for me. I see. Like his stuff. I read it. Yeah, him generally. Yeah.
I see. Sorry. Him generally. Sorry.
This album, I've never heard it. I've never heard it. I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone that has. I can't remember anyone talking about it.
Well, no, ditto. I've never even heard of it. And usually, I've at least heard of it.
Yeah,
so that's and it's good. It's good to have Prince. Prince is a good artist to have on this. Perfect for this spot. Good work, mate.
Well, Prince at that time, or was he Was it the artist or the squiggle?
Prince, he was out of it by then. He was out of his contractual malarkey, and he was Prince again. Then, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't the symbol anymore.
Taff Cap was the other one, wasn't it?
Taff Cap,
the artist formerly known as Prince.
Yeah. Great, fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you,
Marcus. Are you wearing the same T-shirt you were wearing last night, Marcus?
Yeah, same one. I've been wearing it constantly, bringing the memories back, keeping them alive.
A bit dirty. Do you wear T-shirts 2 days in a row?
Yeah, don't you?
Is it a Monroe one, Mark? Was it merch or is it?
No, this is Electric Eel Shock signed.
Oh right,
yeah. But because I wore it last time I saw Monroe, I got this T-shirt. They were Electric Eel Shock was supporting Monroe, so I snapped it up then back in 2019.
And you haven't taken it off since?
No, it's been on for about It just come on for this evening, actually. I've also been asleep.
Oh,
Just to be absolutely clear on this.
oh, that's sweet. So you changed into your rock outfit for the pod. That's
Well, I had work
really
clothes on
sweet.
today, so I didn't really want to look like, worky.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Your skate gear.
That's it, my skate gear. Yeah. Man.
Right, that's it, everybody. Thanks ever so
Sick.
much. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simon. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Steenie. Good choice, mate.
Cheers.
Very good. Enjoyed that. Thanks for the music. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, nice one, Steenie. Enjoyed that. Thank you. Yeah.
And thank you, Marcus. And sorry for drawing attention to the t-shirt, mate. It's a very nice t-shirt. It looks lovely. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Goodbye.